So let's try doing something a little more complicated. I'm going to write a program over here called hello numbers.py. What it's going to do is it's going to print out all the numbers between 0 and 10. So while x is less than 10, x equals x plus 1, and we'll also print out x. We run this. Here they are, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Right? So let's try writing that same program in Java. So we're going to call this hello numbers.java. Java. And what I'm going to do is name my class hello numbers, and I'll put my code here. Now you notice in my text editor I had some funny thing that happened where like all this stuff popped up at once. That's a little trick in this text editor I'm using. If you're curious, there'll be a link in the book that will show you how to do that, but it's not necessary for this class. And in fact, starting next week, we're going to encourage you to use not a text editor, to use something called an IDE. We'll talk about that later. Okay. So here we have a class called hello numbers. And in Java, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start naively, and I'm going to try and guess how it works, how you might. So I might say, while x is less than 10, we'll add curly braces here to delimit the beginning and end, because that's what we do in Java. Then I'll say system.out.println x, and then I'll say x equals x plus 1. So if I try running this code over here, I get error, cannot find symbol, x. Okay. Now, while you might originally be tempted to say, okay, well, maybe it's too small, just increase the font size, you'll see that doesn't work. You also can't do things like this, like help the compiler find the symbol. That's just going to confuse it even more. Actually, what it's trying to tell you is that you should be declaring your variable. Okay, so that's something we need to do in Java. I'm not sure if I got that size right, but close enough. So what it's saying is, before a variable could be used, you have to specify that it exists. So I could do that by saying, for example, int x. So this is a variable declaration. It says, 1, x exists, and 2, it's an integer. So if I now run this code, I get the same behavior out of my Java program. And just kind of a minor seeming thing, but it ends up having really big consequences for the way that we're going to write code in Java. So just to show you a shorthand, you can also, if you want, just write out int x equals 0, so that's all in one line. So in other words, you're declaring and setting the variable at the same time, and that'll work fine, all the same. So there are some big differences between Java and Python in terms of how variables work. With Python, you can just, or other languages that are not so-called statically typed languages, you can create variables willy-nilly. You can put whatever you want in them. I can decide later that x is actually horse, run it, and you'll get 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, horse. But if I try and pull a similar trick in Java, it won't work so well. In this case, I get error. String cannot be converted to int. And even if you try and do something like this, now it'll yell at you and say, well, x is already defined. Okay? So in Java, variables have a specific type, and those types can never change. And that's going to have really big consequences in that when we're looking at our programs, especially when we start talking about functions, you'll know exactly what's in each type of variable, and what's more, the compiler will actually check and make sure all the types are good before you even run the program. So let's make some notes. Before Java variables can be used, they must be declared. Java variables must have a specific type. Java variable types can never change. Hello, Roy. All right, fun stuff. Now, type errors are not unique to Java. They also exist in languages like Python. For example, in Python, it is not valid to say print 5 plus horse. And if you try running this Python program, you'll get 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 horse, and then we see an error appear, right? So it's just something you can't do in Python. But what's interesting about Java is that when we try and run code that is has a type error, you'll notice that there's a big difference here. This code actually prints out a bunch of stuff before getting to the type error, whereas in Java, we get error, incompatible types, and the program doesn't even run. So what's interesting about Java's typing system is that types are verified before the code even runs. Okay? And that's a big difference between Java and Python. Here, this code, it basically gets a certificate of correctness in terms of types before the code runs. And what that means is that 1, that's fewer bugs that your end users are going to run into. 2, makes it easier for you to debug. And then a third aspect of static types that's really nice is that while you're working with your code, you know what everything should be, that x should always be an integer. And we'll see when we get to functions, and especially in the coming weeks, why that's such an amazing and important piece of the Java language.